Greetings and salutations and welcome to Lost in Video. In this video, I'm not going to be doing another retrospective or a movie list. Instead, today I saw Martin Scorsese's new movie, Killers of the Flower Moon, so I figured I'd give that a quick, non-spoiler review. Without further ado, let's just get right into it. So, what is Killers of the Flower Moon about exactly? Well, it's heavily based off of a non-fiction book titled Killers of the Flower Moon, The Osage Murders and the Birth of the FBI, written by David Grann. In a big picture sense, this is a story about racial injustice and greed. In the 1920s, after oil was discovered beneath their Oklahoma reservation, which was only given to them by the United States government in exchange for originally stealing their land and homes, the Osage tribe became the wealthiest people in the world. They began to live more privileged lives as a result, which at the time was something that many white Americans believed only they had the right to do, because that's just one of the many ways that racism tends to rear its ugly head. This would lead to many of the Osage people being murdered in various ways, as well as being swindled for their wealth and deemed undeserving and unable to handle such fortunes by prejudiced people. Originally, Scorsese's plan was to show the movie from the perspective of the Bureau of Investigation, which was a precursor to the FBI. However, after taking into account the opinions and feelings of the Osage people themselves, Scorsese changed the perspective he would take for the film, realizing this wasn't really a story about the outsider white men who come to fix a problem that other white men created for this indigenous group of people. It was more about the natives of this land, the atrocities that were done to them, the pain and the agony they suffered, and the greed that brought evil men to carry out these murderous acts. Scorsese makes sure that we spent a good amount of time in the Osage community and with the victims of these horrible crimes, perhaps with the intention that we might just begin to imagine the agony and despair that they felt when this happened. I walked out of the theater today both impressed and depressed. This movie was incredibly well made, which should come as no surprise to anyone who's familiar with Scorsese's work. The acting is incredible, with the standout performances in my opinion coming from Lily Gladstone, Leonardo DiCaprio, Robert De Niro, and William Below. In a movie that's more of an ensemble than it is driven by a single character, everyone turns in great performances here. Nobody falls short of the mark. One thing that most people will notice when they go to watch this movie is the 3-hour and 40-minute runtime. I was no different, as I was also daunted by the length of this movie, but once I sat down and watched it, it went by really smoothly. It felt justifiably long, but it didn't feel nearly 4 hours long. I was still comfortable by the time the movie came to an end, but I was ready to get out of there when the credits hit. The movie jumps around a bit in terms of whose perspective we see things from, but that actually keeps things fresh. I don't want to give away who pops in where, but I will say that fans of the talent in this movie will not be disappointed. I've seen movies that shift perspectives between different characters before, and sometimes this can lead to really messy and poor results, or even like separate movies, so I really appreciate the way Scorsese threads this entire story together with grace, making it seem easy in the process. I want to quickly say hello to my newest subscribers. I appreciate you all for subbing me and checking out my videos. If you haven't yet but enjoy this content, please like, share, and subscribe. I'd also love to hear from you in the comments. Now, back to the review. Every time I give up on Robert De Niro and start to think he's given up on real acting, he comes out with a performance like this and completely proves me wrong. His character is despicable in ways that are almost hard to believe, but he plays it with such confidence and at times comes across quite intimidating, even kind of scary, exuding power and greed, among other wonderful traits whenever he's on screen. The scenery is epic and gorgeous, but that's not what makes me enjoy the film as much as I do. It's only an added bonus. There are shots in here that I think stand up with some of Scorsese's greatest, and again, that's saying something. It's not his most visually stimulating or stylish movie, but there are glimpses of those things present in certain moments. After seeing this movie, I can completely understand why it was 3 hours and 40 minutes long, especially since the end credits are pretty long themselves, but this story needed to be told this way. I don't think that you could cut any part of this movie out and still walk out of the theater with the same appreciation for the story that Scorsese is trying to tell here. I don't know where I'd rank this movie among Scorsese's other work, but I can say with full confidence that this will be regarded as one of the good ones. Maybe not regarded like Raging Bull or Goodfellas, but then those movies couldn't be more different than this one anyway. This is a film with scope in multiple ways. Scope in characters, scope in tone, scope in emotions that it makes you feel. I would say this is the saddest movie I've seen in quite some time, and it feels like it's gonna stick with me for a while after having watched it, and especially knowing that it's based on a true story. Again, if timing is your concern out of simply wondering whether or not the movie will hold your attention, I think you should go see it anyway. Boredom was not an issue at all for me personally. And just to clarify, when I say it's not like Raging Bull or Goodfellas, I simply meant that all of these movies are totally different and probably shouldn't even be compared at all. Make no mistake, I already regard this movie as a masterpiece and a triumph, not just for Martin Scorsese, but for everybody involved. I just don't want to compare it to his other work. I am so glad that I went to see this movie in theaters. I don't know what I would rate it right now. I need to sit with it a little while longer before I even start to think about that. All I can say is that I highly recommend this movie to anybody who's old enough to purchase a movie ticket. I hope you've enjoyed this review. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for getting lost in video. See you next time.